All right, all right. Here we go. You guys are here to see and learn about how to recruit and coach like a dynasty. Wait till you guys hear Regan's success, how he got there, what he does, why he does it. And like, it's really, really phenomenal. And what's most important for you guys all to listen to is the mindset. So Regan, we're going to dig into that. And we're going to talk about some of your history, of course, because you got a really fun story. So we're going to get into that. Okay, let's give it 30 more seconds, and then we're going to get launched and make the introduction for everyone. But as Dave loves to say, use the chat. We want to make sure you're there. Use the little reactions at the bottom there, the hearts, whatever it is. If we're doing a good job, if we're getting good information over to you and you're liking it, give us the thumbs up, the hearts. Thank you. There you go. This way we can have a nice interactive experience. Austin. Okay, I see some Boston. I see some Eaton. I see some San Diego. All right,
and
guys.
We got the whole country today. This will be fun.
Yes, whole country. You traveled a lot in your previous career, Regan. How many different states do you think you've been to?
Yeah, like been to or through, I think is a big difference, right? Like anybody that's traveled a little bit, like spending time somewhere is different than driving through it. Yes. I would say I'm probably close to 35, 40 of driving through, and maybe 10 to 20 of like actually spending, reasonable amounts of time at. So
nice. Okay. Yeah. So because, and look, we're all about to get into this, but there's, you played some professional sports, which we're about to get into. And that's why I asked them that question, everybody. How many towns have you been to? Playing some professional sports, you're going to travel. So we're going to get into that. Everyone, welcome. Recruit and coach like a dynasty. What does that even mean? So the things we're going to be covering today is how to create clear and honest discussions about the financial options for your borrowers, learning how Regan and his team engage with how their team engages very quickly and how he trains them. And then, of course, how to drive more purchase. So, hey, if you're not here to learn that stuff, maybe you have to be somewhere else. But if this is important, turn off those emails, turn off those mobile phones. Let's pay attention. Let's jump into this thing. Let me introduce you to our panel. Dave never needs an introduction, the legend in the space. Dave, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I am super pumped, and anytime the title has the word coach in it, I'm extra excited, guys, because that is what I think the mortgage professional of today and the mortgage professional of the future needs to do. And I do think that the companies that institutionalize advice and coaches, they turn loan officers into coaches and advisors, they are the leaders of the future. So super fired up.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm Alex. I'll be the MC, if you will, for today. Thank you again for joining us. And of course, we have Regan here from Watermark. Regan, thank you so much for joining us and giving us this amazing topic to discuss.
Absolutely, guys. Happy to have it. I always love doing these things because I agree with Dave. Like, as an industry, a rising tide floats all boats. And I think too many times people get focused on competition and this and that, but ultimately, if the industry becomes better, we all do better. And so that's a real important thing for me and just my view on mortgage.
Well, and before we jump right into this first poll question that's coming up, and I'll tease it to everyone, but I'm going to take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, right? You guys heard me say that he played some professionals, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think you guys should know who you're hearing from, because there's a mentality that Regan comes into business with that allows us to create a title of dynasty. And so the reason we chose this title for you is specifically because of your sports background. So just, I'm sure everyone's like now drooling and trying to figure out what we're talking about. Tell us a little bit of your background. Before you got into mortgage, what did you do? And how is that experience translating into success in the mortgage space?
Yeah, and I would say Alex is overselling it a little bit. Like it's not like I won Super Bowls or World Series or anything like that. I grew up in Montana, cold weather state, was a baseball player. And, I was probably maybe a little under talented for what I may have achieved, right? Really looking back on it and kind of being honest about it. But, cold weather state, not really a baseball area, ended up in California, then Florida, and then played 1 year in the minor league system. But really, I had known nothing. right? Getting into business. I had no book of business. I had no idea really what mortgage was. I just had a kind of, even in college, no working background either. It's not like I bartended or worked at a store or waitered or anything like that. I was, full-time student and athlete. And when I got into business, it was kind of a blessing that I was so naive, I would say. I knew how sports worked. I knew how teams worked. I knew how dedication worked. I knew the getting up when you don't want to, what that looks like. I knew about when you're in a slump, staying late and working extra on things so that's really kind of all I had going into mortgage. And when I got my first job in the business was 2000 and 2000 or 2002, 2003. I can't really remember. It's been that long, but I got into it and really had no idea. So in just kind of nature, I applied everything that I used to do athletically to mortgage and to my new role, and have really just kept that entire theme consistent for my entire career, whether that be with borrowers or colleagues or coworker or competitors. Like there's always this kind of foundational element, just in my life that, I don't think I could ever take away, because it was such a big part of my life growing up.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what you guys will all hear is you just heard Regan say, hey, I took this experience of, I got to get up for practice when I don't want to get up. I got to work a little harder when we're down in a game. I got to all of those things translate into what it means to recruit and coach to build a dynasty of a team, right? And so this is what we're about to unpack. And Regan, thank you for sharing that. And for anybody else that's an athlete out there, you guys are going to really like where this conversation goes. But let's start with a poll. This is where we make sure you guys are still here. Dave, I know you jumped on camera. Do you want to add something real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so many successful mortgage professionals have just come from sports, come from competition. Obviously, this is a guy that really made it to, the highest level of the sport he has passion about. But business is so much more fun when we turn it into a game. So yes. I just want to connect with that. I don't care whether, you played soccer in grade school. The more we gamify business, the more successful. And to me, that's one of those things that becomes the seed of success. I once had about an hour with the guy who was the chief operations officer of In-N-Out, one of the most successful franchises in business. Anybody that likes a good hamburger, In-N-Out is known for that. Yeah. And when I was asking him, what is the key to your success, one of his 3 answers to that was competition. We create this competitive environment. He goes, when you watch In-N-Out operate, it's like a sports arena, and everybody is competing against themselves and are competing against each other. So I want to just call out, just in his story and that competition, really that is one of the key threads to the whole title of this thing, So anyways, let's do the poll and let's keep it rocking.
Well, look, we may not even need to do the poll. Dave, I don't know if you've seen this. Everyone's putting the answer into the chat, which, by the way, I love that. I'm gonna throw out confetti for everyone because this is awesome. You don't hear the celebration, but thank you. This is exactly what we're looking for. And the answer, you guys can go ahead and answer the poll, but I can see it in your chat. And I am not surprised by this. I'm sure you're not surprised by this either, Regan, that the answer is false to this question. And I'm going to read this out loud for those of you that may be looking somewhere else for a minute. Poll: borrowers are more likely to work with a lender that offers competitive rates, fees than with the lender who provides the best home buying experience. For those of you that are just listening, everyone in chat has already said false. We're going to finish this poll. I love this, right? This was a little bit of a setup of a question, but there's a reason for this. Oh, some people said true. Well, the ones that said true, put in your thinking into the chat, please. Love to hear what that is. But let's unpack this. So for you, Regan, the answer is false. We know this from you. But why is it false? How do you know it's false?
I would say true and false, if I'm being honest. And here's why I say this is kind of my experience, right? It's not in the industry and coaching groups and anything, or even within my team or people that I know for a long, long time, maybe even at other companies, right? That we network and talk shop with. There's there's sometimes we want to have this wishful thinking, right? Like this wishful thinking of, oh, like, it's always about service and borrower experience. It's never about rate and fees. Like we always, and the reality is that is true, right? But I just feel like in any industry, I don't care if it's wealth advisory, I don't care if it's the grocery store or gas, right? There are a segment of people, I don't know the number, but there's a small segment, 5%, 10% of people that literally will drive a half a mile to get a cheaper price on the gas tank than
Yes.
than they will, but not realizing how much gas they're spending to get there, right?
Yep.
There is a segment of, I think, consumers that for whatever reason are just wired for cheap, right? Not looking at the big picture, not looking at the net results, right? So that's why I say it's a little true and false. Would I say that's a small segment? Absolutely. I think a bulk of people are looking for service, knowledge, understanding, advice, especially with a mortgage. Like the media has done a great job of kind of downplaying mortgage advice. Oh, click a button, get a mortgage, right? Slogans like that. And so they've done a decent job with that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times clients just don't know what they don't know. And
but Regan, tell me, and I'm going to jump in here because I think it's important. A lot of what you're saying, people are going to be like, I know this already. Okay. Like they're like, I know, I agree with you, Regan. I think the same thing. Let's go beyond that. People join this because they don't want to hear what they know. Yeah. Tell me how you believe, like, let's really dive in and unpack this. Why are people paying more for a mortgage when they could drive half a mile and get a lower mortgage? Why are they paying more for a mortgage with you?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, your home is one of the most important aspects of somebody's life, right? And anytime there's a big decision, or anytime I would say, let's say there is concern or questions or not understanding, I feel consumers want it. Like I look at myself, right? If I'm buying a garden hose, I am really not that concerned as I am with my investments, right? Like they're different, and too many times I think people or the media treat them the same. So we've been successful by bringing this up at the very beginning, like the very initial conversation with have a client. Like you don't want to discuss the value proposition or costs or later in the game. To me, it's always on the first call. If a realtor refers me, a past client refers me, all of our groups and teams, like the first conversation is, now, did they explain much about what we do? Like, I want that first call, not about, what their birthdays, their socials, their jobs, their income. Like, I want that first call to really clearly define, why did they get referred to us? Right.
Okay. Can I pause there for a second? Ooh.
Yeah.
Guys, I said it's time to take notes. Here's the first note. Regan just said he doesn't even talk about mortgage. He's not even talking about that. He's literally asking, why are you here? And everyone, remember, we're talking about building a dynasty, not one person on your team that does this, but an entire team, day in, day out, offers this value, and they are performing. You guys are about to see something very special. Regan's team performs at about 3x the rate of the average loan officer. Every person on his team, not one, but every. So just stay tuned because we're going to unpack that too. But here's your first tip. Here's your first piece of advice. Stop talking mortgages on the first conversation and start understanding why somebody's even on the phone. So Regan, I apologize. I want to make that point and then we can move on. Okay, so now you've asked why. And so remember, we're answering the question, why you at a possibly higher rate than a lower rate. You've already made a great point because you don't talk about price. You talk about why. And somebody's like, oh, I'm opening up. So now they're connecting. What happens next?
I mean, I also think like when you ask them why they got referred over, what ends up happening is they're going to say, well, your agent, whoever sent me, already told me why. And so you instantly know this is the path I go down. Sometimes a client will say, well, I just got your name, I was referred over. That's where you have the next path to go down and explain to them why they're here, right?
Yes.
And so,
do you coach your agents, by the way, Regan? Do you coach your agents what to say?
Absolutely. I mean, that's
no
the
too
thing, right? Like, coach the people that are going to refer you, whether it's an agent, a coach, or I'm sorry, agent, client, wealth advisor, insurance person, anybody that's sending someone over, you want them to have the coached up way to make a referral. Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes it's not a good opportunity for them to make that. But I just like to find out why they came. And then if they don't already know, let me explain it. Like, that's how we start up. Here's how we're different. You know, there's lots of terms. Mortgage planning practice, right? Mortgage advisory firm. Like, you can coin whatever phrase you want.
Sure.
But you have to be different than a traditional lender. You have to be different than a debt giver. And media, big banks, big dollar spends in advertising are designed to make it to where let's just say the lowest common denominator can work for them. They can pay them nothing and they can do mortgages. That's where all the big media dollar spends go, right? Make it so simple that people don't think it matters, right? And it's our job to explain there is a big difference. There's another way, a better way that you can finance your home. And
sorry, so Regan, I just jumping. I want to make sure people hear some of the things that you're saying and they're taking these notes. Hey, everyone that's listening, two things. Number one, Regan is not doing this for a top producer in their company. What he's sharing with you, he makes sure every person on the team does this. Make sure. He's not saying, hey, do this and I'm looking this way. I'm not looking at you anymore. I'm just going to look this way because no, he asks and then he trains up and pushes the whole team, not one person. The next thing, I love this. I wrote it down right away. Are you guys slinging debt? Like, hey, lenders, listen, is your team selling and slinging debt out there? Regan just said, and I bet you use this language and I bet people love it when they hear it. Mr. and Mrs. Borrower, I'm not here to sling debt. I'm not here to push debt on you. Right? And I think that resonates so well. So remember, everyone, we're answering this question. Just want to put it up on screen real quick because we keep having more and more people join us. We're answering this question right here. True or false? You know, they want to work with the lowest rate and that's what they're looking for. That most of the people said false. Regan said both, and he's explaining why somebody would buy from him, even if it's at a higher price. And so he's just laid out 3 different things that everyone can be doing. Ask why, make sure that you are clear that you're not slinging debt and you're coaching up your agents or anyone that's referring you business. They're coached already. They don't refer someone unless they know why they're referring and what you do. I think it's very important. All 3 of those things make me, the consumer, go, yeah, I really don't, I'm not even going to ask you about a price. I trust that you're going to advise me. Like the price is not even going to be a question.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Fair. I mean, we could do an entire segment on training referrals, right? And you know, we wouldn't have time, right? But ultimately, if you get a referral that is just like somebody handed you somebody handed a client their business card, you may as well call out of the phone book, in my mind.
Yes. And remember, everyone, I'm going to keep coming back to this too. This is about how to build a dynasty. So when you're listening to this, listen to this. If you're here for yourself, fantastic. You listen. If you're running a team, running a company, running a division, running a region, pay attention to the things that Regan says, because he never talks about I. He always talks about team, we, together, growth. When we get to this, Regan, and we're going to answer this question. So guys, there's a poll that you'll answer. We're not running it right now because we're still discussing this one topic, but we're about to run it. And feel free to answer inside the chat again, guys. That was so fun. Do that if you want to. But you're going to hear that Regan, where most lenders will talk to somebody, meaning like a loan officer or somebody looking to join their team, and go, okay, great. I see your production. You're on the team. Done. You're going to find out that Regan slows the process down. He makes sure you fit into this existing dynasty and not some left field. You're not part of sort of the philosophy, the culture of what we do. He doesn't, and he'll tell you himself in a second, he doesn't even care what your production is. If you don't fit into this model, you can't join the team, which is why everyone on his team is so successful. And so I would just encourage everyone to listen with that ear of, how do I do this for my team? Scale, growth, not I'm the only one. If you are just here for yourself, no problem. But if you're here for a team, think of it that way. Don't, because often, and then let's get to this next poll, often what happens, team or gang, is we hear people come back and say, hey, your stuff was fantastic. Our top producers love it. It's like, wait, stop for a second. It wasn't just for your top producer. It's for your team. And it's a whole team. And believe me, when your whole team is winning, you're elevating everyone. And so, Dave, I see you jumped on screen. Before I move on to this next poll, what you got?
Well, if you can stop sharing the screen real quick,
Sure.
I want people to really connect with this message. And I was also, Regan, love for you to share your vision on this. But, a lot of companies, they'll buy technology to, create a competitive advantage. And we all know that just having a piece of technology is not a competitive advantage. It's when that technology is utilized at scale, when what Regan's talking about, advice versus price, it's institutionalized at scale. And so I guess, Regan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because obviously we invited you here because, you're outperforming the market, you use our technology. I would love other leaders that are listening to this just to hear your take on that and your color around that.
Yeah, and I would just real quick go back to what Alex said, like the building, like this isn't just always about a team. Like I think that cultural mindset, the stuff that we just talked about last 5 minutes that applies to an individual. Even if you're not building a team, you can build a dynasty of your own book of business. Like keep in mind, your past clients are your dynasty, right? Like if that past client database is not referring you, then you're not building that dynasty. So this is not applying to big teams, divisions, leadership, etc. only. This is like individuals have their own dynasty to create. So, but to kind of what Dave said, like there's not one piece of tech in the 19, 20 years I've done this that like, if you sign up, you go from 10 million to 100 million. Like that just doesn't happen. Like if there was, everybody be doing 100 million, right?
That's right.
So the way that I looked at it is like with Sales Boomerang, we got connected through a new office that came on board. They said, hey, have you heard about this tech? It's really something we like. So we looked into it. And, what was interesting is we've always kind of been a data and tech driven group. Like, I mean, there's power in data, especially now it's only going to get more and more. Oh, yeah. But we were kind of pulling data from 10 to 12 sources. Like you can use CoreLogic to scrape value data. You can use credit triggers. You can use monitoring things. And like what happens is you get like these 10 or 12 entities bringing it all in, right? So all the information was there, but like Sales Boomerang, all of it was in one place, right? And there's not delays. And like if your value data is 2 weeks old, but your trigger data is real time, but then your monitoring data is 3 weeks old, like it just doesn't work, kind of to Dave's point. And so like what we found with Sales Boomerang is that one space, one thing aggregated all the stuff that we were doing. And it takes from, let's say somebody really drilled in, it might've been a 30-minute process to determine, is this a valid alert that we should look at? Now it's done in 5 seconds. Like, I mean, that's where, to Dave's point of scalability, it is not scalable to sift through that much data when it's 15, 20, 30 minutes a pop. When it's 5 seconds, that's where it stretches out and spreads out and becomes usable.
Wow. I love hearing you describe that, guys. And what he said is so important, because signals in the database are great. Alerts are great, but if they're not, coming through in a unified way, one of the things that we're dedicated here at Sales Boomerang and Mortgage Coach is collecting every possible data interaction, we call them signals, that a mortgage professional that wants to optimize the opportunity for a family. And here's something else I want everybody to realize. It's not just like, oh, when is there a debt consol? Oh, there's a possible move-up buyer there. Sometimes it's just a family in distress. I recently talked to a loan officer, and I'd love to know if you have any stories like this, where he had called his family because their credit was going down, credit score was going down, credit was going up. And when he got a hold of the family, he found out that the mom was literally weeks away from leaving her job because they had a sick child. And that's why their expenses had gone up. And because he got this alert and got this signal, he called this family. He was able to help them optimize their equity. The mom could leave. Like if she would have left before she would have met this loan officer, she would have been unfinanceable. And so sometimes it's not just, being opportunistic. sometimes you're literally like saving a home for a customer because you're able to optimize things. Any stories like that come to mind, both offensive and defensive like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's not has it happened, it's how often does it happen, right? Like, you know, is these, as you get opportunities to talk to clients, and going back to that whole dynasty of your book of business for an individual, right? Like, you know, if it is impossible, let's just say you're the best originator and you just put calendar reminders for every person in your database, right? And you call them religiously on those days, but you have absolutely no reason to talk to them. Your value starts diminishing, right? Like if you call Tom once a month, every day, you know, right on schedule, and you just call and say, I don't have anything to say, I'm just checking in, and you're like, you know, tiptoeing around of like, can I get some loans from you? Like, you become annoying. When you can call people with a purpose, it changes everything that's done. And that's kind of to Dave's point. There was a reason the alert came through. There was a reason that originator called, and they had something to discuss, and that becomes valuable, right? And so that's why I said it's not just one time, it's how often does it happen? Because there's going to be 20 variations of that same story, where if an originator uses tech and alerts and triggering and the tools that are available correctly, every call you have actually matters. They're not just calls to make calls, right? You know, back to that, the athletics, like one of my favorite things growing up was like practice makes perfect. But then like, as I got older, the phrase got changed to perfect practice makes perfect. Like all you're doing is practicing bad things or things that are not correct. You're never going to get perfect.
So guys, I'm going to say something provocative, but I think it's also really true. I want to say that most of the marketing that loan officers and lenders send is spam. And maybe not by the legal definition of spam, but it isn't relevant. It's like what marketers want to do. Marketers want to send out X monthly, weekly. We want to send this out on a milestone. But if it isn't valuable to the consumer, if it doesn't come in with context to the consumer, it's noise. You know, yes. It's noise would be the most polite thing to call it. And spam is really what it is. And then the other thing, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, and then I'll hand it back to you, Alex, jump in after Regan answers this next question. But it's one, reached out to the customer at the right time with context so that it has relevance. And then it's two, it's what you send. You know, I just saw this comment from Mark Hagestad in Austin, Texas. You know, by the way, what's up, Mark? Go Austin. And he's like, more times than not, and as a broker, rarely lose on a rate. Having said that, great rates plus Mortgage Coach will win. And so where the magic is, and I'm not just saying this because, hey, Alex and I, you know, we're Mr. Mortgage Coach and Mr. Sales Boomerang here. You know what we are? We're Mr. Data, so you can have valid and connect. And we're Mr. Coach. Like we think like when you give that coaching advice, you create that coaching experience. Now you are transcending being a loan officer, and you're really delivering value. So I just love to hear your thoughts and your color around just kind of the combination of that 1-2 punch of data, you know, insight and educational borrower experience. What are your thoughts?
Well, Dave, you're 100% right. Like one of the things that like I get geeked out on is like marketing, right? Like just the subconscious of people, why people make decisions, like that kind of stuff. And social media created it to where it's harder to actually get somebody's attention, right? I mean, it's just, like you said, it's noise, right? And most of the marketing techniques are built around things that might have worked 9-10 years ago when social media first came out, right? Before it was noise, when it was like, whoa, somebody put this in my feed, let me read it. Now everybody's like, wait a minute, is this sponsored? Is this an ad? Like, and then, you know, their guard is up. And to me, I think it's gone back to 30 years ago marketing, where it was person to person. There was a reason for it. And, you know, to kind of I always stick on these sports analogies, but it's like anybody that plays baseball, if you watch a batter, anybody who's ever been to a game, they stand in there, and they all look different. They all have different stances, different hands, but they have like the same 3 fundamentals. And I think mortgage and marketing is the same and sales is the same thing. Like everyone's going to have a different approach. Everybody's going to have these little things. Well, I don't feel good about saying that, right? Or I don't feel good, but there's going to be fundamentals from data, from presentation, from coaching, that if you don't have those, you can't win, right? Like you could do all the shiny object stuff in the world and subscribe to every email blast campaign and social media post. But like, if you don't have some of these fundamentals, nothing matters. And then there are going to be people that do zero shiny object. Okay. They only have the fundamentals that will outperform all the other stuff, right? I mean, I don't have social media. Somebody hacked my account. I could never get it back from Facebook, and I just never reopened an account. So like, so it's not like you have to be posting on social every single day. Like there's other ways. I think the biggest key with any of that though, like be authentically you. That's going to resonate more, especially today, right? Be authentically you. That's how you're going to attract people, have trust. And then clearly you have to do the right thing, right? Like if you're falsely attracting people just for your own gain, it's not going to work, right? People will see through that. But however you do it, that's kind of my takeaway when you talk about fundamentals.
I love that. And we're going to get to those fundamentals because that's coming up in this deck. And I was at the dentist this morning. Actually, my face is still a little numb. This is a true story. My dentist says, she's amazing, by the way. She says, well, you know how they set you up right before they put a needle in your mouth. I'm like, hi, how's it going? All this good stuff, right? To get your attention away from it. She goes, hey, remind me what you do again. And I said, we help consumers fall in love with their lenders and they learn to trust them. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, we make sure that your lender's contacting you when it's valuable for you. And there's something that's of specific value for you and not just in general. And this was great. She paused. She goes, that's a great service. She goes, how do I know if my bank does that? How do I know they subscribe? Because that would make me appreciate my lender a little more. If I give you a name, will you know? And so it was just so interesting to hear a consumer's perspective. Like, hey, if I know my lender's looking out for me like that, that would make me like my lender more, which I thought was like really a cool, as my mouth is getting numb, I was like, that's a really cool insight to have. And so what you're saying is the purpose. That's why I'm bringing this back. Call with purpose, not with pushing products just to push. Hey, it's the first of the month again. I said I'd call you. I'm calling you, and it doesn't work. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that full circle before I share the screen again. But it was just so interesting to see a consumer go, hey, does my lender use you? Because I would like that. And it was really cool. So poll guys, I saw some stuff already in chat. We're throwing this up here. For those of you that for some reason aren't completely glued to the screen, and I can see you guys are with the number of people that continue to join and stay on this call, which do you think is the most effective tactic for maintaining purchase revenue in a high cost, low demand market? I will not read all the options to those that aren't looking. You guys see those that are there. Regan, while we're getting the results of this, which will populate the next 20 seconds or so, don't tell us yet. But do you have one on this screen that you lean towards?
Not on the screen.
Oh, you have a different one. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. We're gonna see that in a second.
The only thing I want to say is I think having the lowest rate and fees is the least effective. Creating the best experience, creating the most value for a consumer. Persistence is going to win. To one of the points that was made at the beginning, there are some people, no matter what you say and how you say it, they're going to do business with you. And guys, by the way, there's a reason that there is Neiman Marcus. There are some people that want to pay the highest fee. Like they're not going to be happy if oh, it's the lowest fee. Let's not be the best deal. I'm going somewhere else. But when you deliver a service, you deliver financial guidance, which I'll go ahead and say it, number 2 is probably what I'd vote for.
Let's show the results, Nicole, when you're done.
Yeah, let's see what we got, everybody. And leave it up there for a second.
Okay.
So I want to just take it. Yeah. So, well, good. We got a bunch of like-minded folks. My vote ended up getting, I hope I didn't influence anybody into that. But that's super valuable. So we have a lot of like-minded people. Now, here is a question I want to ask. I want every manager, and stop sharing real quick, Alex, the screen. I want every manager to answer this question. This is what you believe. How well are your loan officers at delivering on that experience? Are they calling their alerts? And hopefully you as a leader and a manager, you have a platform, you have Sales Boomerang, and you're doing that. And are you doing your part? And are they doing their part? And then when it comes to giving the advice, like Regan said, ask questions. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Are you showing them, hey, well, here's a monthly payment. This is what you qualify for? Or are you showing it, you know what? Here's your monthly payment. Here's what you qualify for. And this is how these two options will impact you over the next 5 years. And then the true American dream, guys, is owning a home debt-free. And here's the strategy that will help you pay off your home and achieve financial freedom faster. Guys, and then, so one, it's having these platforms, Mortgage Coach, Sales Boomerang, and then two, it's institutionalizing it to where every loan officer in your company is delivering that amazing, experience driven by data, educational experience, being a good person. So I wanted to just think, like, where do I rate? And by the way, this is just for you. Write it down on paper, bits of paper. Are they data driven? Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? Are they advice driven and experience driven? And do you have a scalable way of institutionalizing that in your organization? So, Regan, anything you want to share from what you just heard or from those poll questions?
I mean, I think of the questions that the option answers we had, I think you nailed it, Dave. Like that's what I agree. But I really think it's trust, right? And like trust is too big of a scale. Like somebody who's never met me calls me and they don't trust right away, right? It's what everything Dave said. It's like when you ask them, what are you trying to do? Some people aren't trying to live in this home forever. They're trying to buy it and in 5 to 6 years, move up to the next house. They're going to have a different plan. The minute an originator starts working on scenarios or with a client or a pre-approval and all they focus on is rate and payment, you make yourself a commodity.
That's right.
You make yourself the exact same as somebody else, as somebody else, as somebody else. And at that point, you have intentionally or unintentionally turned the entire process into numbers only. So maybe you approach it the question a different way. How do you mess it up? Right? Like you mess it up by commoditizing what you do, right? And you go the other way by doing everything Dave talked about. And through that is where you get the trust. And when you get the trust, that's how clients work with you forever. And that's how they refer people, right? Like I've run some numbers and I know, and we did this in a network group of mine with, call it 6, 7, 8, seasoned veteran, well-producing folks. And every year consistently, 50% of their business is coming from a past client. Now, I don't mean redoing a past client. I mean from redoing a past client or that past client referring somebody. So you say, how does somebody do 100 million in a year? I would venture to say it is not that they generated 100 million of new leads that came in and they closed every one of them. What it is they probably generated 50 million of new business in, and they got 50 million from that living, breathing book of business because they've done such a great job and provide so much advice and service over the years. That's how it works.
And guys, I want you to write down a number. He just said 50%. I want you to write down 93%. Just write down 93%. You know what 93% is? That's what Rocket's retention is. They're using technology, they're using data, they're institutionalizing their way of doing business, and they're getting real retention. The majority of mortgage companies are less than 20%. And anybody over 50% is knocking it out of the park. And then here's what I want you to do post this call. I want you to add up the money. One of the things we do in the sales process here at Sales Boomerang Mortgage Coach is we do a lost loan report. So we'll literally, like, as our sales process, this is how many loans you're losing. And guys, here's another provocative statement. Most lenders, most loan officers lose more loans than they close. You know, between point of sale, you don't have optimized conversion, and then you've got a total leak in the boat. And we're at a time in the industry where leaks sink ships. You know, like every lead, every loan, every basis point matters more than it ever has before. And so, you know, it is a combination, you know, while here at Sales Boomerang and Mortgage Coach, you know, we want to have our technology implemented, but we want to help companies. We want to help lenders. You know, there's a reason we wear this shirt, no borrower left behind. You know, we want to make sure that every borrower, by the way, gets strategy, you know, gets advice. So anyways, dude, you know, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to be on a call like this with you, but I love the way you roll, Regan. And guys, this audience is insane.
Oh, it's amazing.
All the great feedback, questions, the hearts, the emotions. Alex, back to you, brother.
Yeah, man. It's perfect transition. It's perfect. Hey, to be honest, Regan, this is what everyone's been waiting for. And that's why we put it in the middle, not in the front. This is what everyone's been waiting for. Guys, literally, Regan, tell everybody, on average, what is your loan officer and like everyone, not one person, not two, but what every person on your team on average will do annually?
Well, let's say, you know, you take
roundabout, you don't have to give details.
Close to 30 million, right? And what I would say though to that is, when you deal with averages, not every single person employed does 30 million, right? But it's just like in an organization, when you start talking dynasties, right?
Yes.
Not everyone is Tom Brady, but there
right.
are people that are trending in that direction. And to me, it's always been a grow within. There's a reason sports teams have minor league systems, because the 19-year-old kid is not ready to play in the major leagues day one, right? And it is the exact same within business. The average across the amount of production in units ends up being right around 30 million a year, right? And then there are different phases of people trending, right? And so for me, I think the main reason is, one, you need to have, and I see too often, this is just totally missed in the mortgage industry, you need to have a company that is supporting the same path you go, right?
Yes.
I think companies miss the mark by saying, I look on a spreadsheet, they do this, they must be a good fit, boom, drop them in. Oh, I look at their production, boom, drop them in, right? But the reality of it is, everybody's going to do things differently, and everybody's going to click in a different way. And what's great in somebody that works well in our model might not work somebody else's model. And somebody that working really well in another model might come to us and say, man, this ain't a good fit, right? There's different cultures among teams. There's different cultures among companies, right? There's a right fit for every person. There's not one best mortgage company, right? And so to really maximize it, you need to be somewhere that supports what you want to do and where you're going in your trajectory. You can't have headwinds if you're going to get to where you want to be as quick as you can. You need tailwinds, right? And there's not one thing. To Dave's point, to what we talked about earlier, there's not one piece of tech that will take you from 10 to 100. But what it is there is a little piece here, a little piece here, a little piece here. There's some habits you have. There's some coaching you have. There's some competition. There's some synergies. And all of a sudden, 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. Even though it mathematically never will make sense, right? Like, but that's kind of the
but
concept.
You've said something. First of all, by the way, Regan, you're getting mad love, and people throw up some hearts for him. You're getting mad love from the audience. Like, you're speaking their language, they're loving it, and they're letting us know. So thank you for that. You said something in our original conversations that really stuck with me, and why this question is here and really was important, is that you could talk to a producer that's doing 100 million, and you would rather bring on somebody that did 20 million last year than that $100 million producer, because of certain things they've said, how they're acting, what their goals are, aspirations. I think you had even mentioned that sometimes a top producer, like $100 million producer, can disrupt the entire business when they come in. And you are building a team, not an individual producer's life, right? Like, you're building a team. And I loved it. And we'd even talked about, like, you had mentioned, hey, in other organizations, that's typically not the case, because they want the production. They're not thinking about the dynasty. They're thinking about, what are my numbers going to look like at the end of the year? And I think it's so vital that you are like, no, Do you remember Terrell Owens from football?
Yes. Oh yeah. Like Ocho Cinco, T.O., like you could, most recently Antonio Brown. Like, I mean,
That's
there's
it.
like, but that's not what I like when there's not things that cause problems. I think that our industry is the only industry that tends to look at one number, which is production, and make their decision off that. If you look at any other business, like I don't care if it's a restaurant, a gym, a car dealership, like they're making decisions. Is this a good business decision, right? If you have $100 million producer and it comes with $60,000 a month in overhead because of all the long-term leases and contracts they signed, then I can tell you that's going to be a hard thing to outrun.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
You could have a $20 million producer with effectively no overhead. Those are good business decisions, right? And you can start peeling the onion back a little bit further on character, growth, plan. Do we align? But my point with all of that is like, it's getting exposed now. Last 2 years, production was production. That's what it was. But things have changed, right? And it's that old Warren Buffett quote, right? When the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked. I mean, that's kind of what's happened these past few years at a corporate level, right?
Yes.
So that's why, to me, like you can't just look at that production number and dictate as somebody a great fit and a great originator. That just doesn't work, because there's a lot of great originators and great fits and people that could grow a ton in the 10 to 20 million range. There's a ton and they get overlooked. And all the resources go to this $100 million guy who unknowingly is sinking the ship, right? I mean, and not to say it like be negative, because I'm always a glass half full kind of guy, but like it's just the concept.
And so what's important here is you just heard from Regan that it's about the person fitting into a system rather than somebody coming in, and even though they could look amazing on paper, they have baggage that could disrupt the process, the system, the flow of the entire organization. But the other part of it is when you're bringing someone into your system, and Regan, this is where you and I align very well, because you're not new to the mortgage industry, but I've been spending 6-7 years in this space. And one of the things I've realized is people are like, I just want production. And you have your CRM, you have your marketing automation platform, you have your thing. I don't care what you have, just bring me the production. And what we found, and you're starting to see some big names start to realize that's not scalable. And hit this headwind that we're facing now in the last 12 months. And companies like that are starting to fall apart a little bit and start to feel the real pain. And then someone like you and many organizations we speak to go, no, we have a process. You're going to use Sales Boomerang. You're going to use MortgageCoach. You're going to log into this. You're going to log into that. You're going to follow this process. We're going to make you better. You're coming to us with 20 million. We're going to make you 30 million. After that, we're going to make you 35 million. If you don't want that, you got to go somewhere. And that entire process allows someone to come in and then work your system rather than disrupting your system. So everyone on the call, don't get stuck on production. Think about what a dynasty looks like. Let's talk about Tom Brady for a minute and the dynasty they built. They had a system. They didn't just bring in, if you remember, one of my favorite things about the Tom Brady dynasty is how they would bring in no-name receivers. No-name receivers at all. You'd be like, who is this? Star, stud, getting contracts from other teams immensely, right? Like truly changing lives. But because they said, we don't want you, Ocho Cinco. You're not going to fit this system. You're way too good. You're going to do your own thing. Not interested. We want this kid that has never done anything that anyone's ever heard of. We're going to make him part of the system. Everyone, please listen. That is how you build a dynasty. You have a system, you get people to follow it instead of, oh, you have production. That's all we care about. And so this brings me to the last part of this conversation.
I'll throw one last thing, Alex,
please,
in on that. I want to make it clear, like it doesn't have to be rigid, not like the military or there's some other programs out there. It's like rigid, right? Because I still believe people need to be authentically themselves, right?
Yes.
But what I would say to it is, when you sit down and look at what the byproducts of bringing on production for production's sake are, it creates and it puts companies in a position where they have to do other things, raise margin on everybody else, cut this expense, change that, right? And so it's the reason having these things in place is not to be rigid or our way or the highway. It's because we know the byproduct is going to flood down to everybody else, and that's irresponsible at leadership level, right? And so that's, I think, understanding why, whether it's a team or a branch or a group, whatever you're running or thinking about, like the decision you make is going to have a byproduct, and is that going to hurt everybody else that has worked their butts off for you for the last 5 or 6 years? That's the background of the decision-making process.
Yes. And again, I won't mention any names. I'm sure you're all following news and you know what's going on, but that exact thing that you just said is literally happening. And Dave, you brought this up to me not too long ago. You're like, Alex, people are giving like crazy bonuses for people to sign on. And everyone else in the company seeing that going, wait a minute, I've been here doing this for you. I'm not getting that. And you see these big brands just falling apart because they're like, hey, it's just, let's look at a top producer. Don't worry about a team. This top producer will get other people to come. And it's just causing this friction. And so I had a slide up that said, why are false positives so problematic? If I want to get to that in just a second. I'm seeing personal messages. I'm seeing public messages here in chat asking about, is Regan going to show us the Sales Boomerang platform and the system and how it works and how he utilizes it? And what, we're not going to get into that detail in here, guys. That's something, jump on the borrower intelligence platform, and Regan can speak to this a little bit because it has to do with this false positive issue. Go online, schedule a demo, talk to our team. Let's make sure that you're a right fit for this model. We're not going to get into that detail today. It's in other sessions we do today. We were talking about how Regan builds the team that utilizes this tech stack rather than here's how we utilize the tech stack. Because what's important for everyone to take away here is Regan has a tech stack. He has a methodology, and he says, if you want to work here, this is what you're going to do. And by the way, you're going to produce about 3 times more than any other average loan officer does because you're going to be part of this system and this platform. The details of how he uses it, we can have another session on that, everyone. But we're not going to show that. But definitely, Nicole just dropped the link in there. Go ahead and go there. So one final thought, Dave, I see you jumped on.
Can I say one thing before we do that?
Yeah.
It came from something that was talked about from a recruiting standpoint. And again, guys, I've been in this business for 36 years. This is the second worst pivot, or when I say worst, most difficult and challenging. And in this market, recruiting loan officers and making sure you have a great team, it's never been more important. Every lead, every loan, every conversion matters. But I also see this myopicness in the industry. And I'm not saying paying a signing bonus is a bad thing. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is if you don't have a Sales Boomerang monitoring your database, you're not institutionalizing advice in your organization. I can't tell you how many times we've been in the sales process and the proposal for Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang is like a lot less than one signing bonus for one loan officer. Like, guys, we are dedicated to this industry success. We're dedicated Absolutely. To every single loan officer. And I just want to push every manager listening to this, schedule the demo. We put a link. We'll talk about that more in detail. We'll show you a lost loan report, and we will elevate every single loan officer in your company. So we look forward to those calls. And Regan, I know we got another important question to close on. And remember, community, if you have questions for us, we'll try to get to them. So put them.
Thanks for all the love and I think that's all for you, Regan. Literally, this entire chat has been complimenting you this whole time.
I think Dave, when he goes off camera, is just clicking heart. Like,
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. They are for you, though, Regan.
They are. It's amazing. So look, we don't have much time to go over this. Everyone, I do want you to answer this. So I apologize for those of you that are like, oh, I'm hitting a deadline. This is recorded. You will get a copy of this. But that false positive thing is so important. You yes. Leaned on it a little bit earlier where you're like, hey, it takes 30 minutes to confirm the information is right. And that's too much. Here with Sales Boomerang, it's 5 seconds. but then there's specific question here, like the false positive. And you made such an important point about this when we spoke before this event, about how the false positives, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you'll explain this better, I'll just set it up, how false positives can deflate the confidence of your team, and then even the good ones they just overlook. Can you talk to that and the importance of accuracy there?
Yeah, and I still have this boots in the ground mentality. Like, you know, my original book of business, I still have a branch that runs that book of business. Like, I see it and I've been there, and I still feel like I'm very in tune with it. And what I'd say is, I have called leads that were given to me at various stages, early in my career, middle of my career. And like, you call, you're like, oh, excited. Oh, I got this. I got this alert. I got this, whatever it is. And you call, the client has zero need, zero desire to talk to you, doesn't answer for 5-6 times that you call, right? And like, over time, that alert, that lead, I know personally, because I've sat in that seat and done it. I get that. And I'm like, yeah, that guy's not going to do anything. That guy, he's not going to do anything. And so like, too often, whether it's an alerting system, a trigger, a data point, something, if it's creating false positives, you are not going to be excited to reach out to that client. And even if you do, you're not going to be at your best, because in the back of your head, you're thinking this is probably junk. And when you start doing data correctly, right? And originators get an alert, a listing alert, a debt alert, a consolidation, a credit pull, whatever that is through Sales Boomerang, you can go into it excited and like have a great call, because you know there's something there. Like, that is just the psychology of sales. If you think you're most likely not going to get anything, versus you think something is here, you are going to perform much better personally, and you're going to have a better outcome. And that's why I think too many of the triggers or alerting systems or whatever, it's stale data, it's inaccurate. And like, it's not that people aren't calling them, they just don't want to. And when they show up, they're not showing up as the best version of themselves.
Yes.
Whereas with Sales Boomerang, and you're not having false positives, you get a higher conversion because you're a better version of yourself, because you want to be getting that alert, right? I've had originators tell me, like, I brought something up, just, hey, do you guys how's Sales Boomerang work? You get any alerts? And he's like, dude, I'm bummed I haven't gotten an alert for like 3 days. Like, so one that tells me his clients aren't shopping. It tells me that he's done a really good job, structuring their loans and their debt, but he's kind of bummed he didn't get an alert for 3 days, right? Like, that's not a false positive. That's an exciting thing to be given in your inbox.
I love that. I love that. And by the way, Regan, I think you've just literally coined our next campaign, which is start doing data correctly. Love that. What a great statement. Start doing data correctly.
I'm Regan, here all week, Alex,
Try the bisque. Look, everyone, thank you. I mean, the audience stuck around, man. They wanted to hear this. Show everyone, let's show Regan some love. Let's show some excitement here. Let's throw those hearts up again, everyone. Truly. Regan, we only have 2 hands, so you can see how many hearts. It's not us. It's amazing. Thank you so much. A great conversation. Truly, what you do, how you approach this, your philosophy, your heart that goes into this. I can see why your team not only performs well, but wants to perform well for themselves and you. It's obvious. You've made it easy for people to go, I like it here. You believe in me. I believe in you. What else can I do for you, team? And everyone, I just encourage you to follow that advice. Regan, it sounds like we're going to have you on again, because people want more, and we're super happy to have you. Dave, final words from you, final words from Regan, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hey, Regan, thanks. You killed it. You delivered a lot of inspirational value. And then thanks for the audience, everybody that tunes into any of our webinars, anything we do on YouTube. Super grateful for you. For anyone that's a loan officer on this, please share this with your managers. We want to upgrade your tech stack. We want to make sure you have, we're moving into an era of the haves and the have-nots. In the haves, they have Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang, our borrower intelligence platform. They tune into our YouTube channel because we're elevating loan officers. Think of us as your.
You mean the YouTube channel has more than 20,000 subscribers now?
We hit 20,000 subscribers yesterday, about 7 in the morning. And we're dedicated to not only providing great tech, but training your team to leverage that technology. So also check out what we've been doing with Dale Vermillion. We created a great, we collaborated with Dale and his team. We created an amazing sales training platform. We're going to put a link down below.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, let's face it, guys, you pick your habits and your habits pick your success. And we are committed to helping you guys institutionalize the right sales habits. Check out this Dale Vermillion sales training. And I'll let you have the last closing words, Regan, but super grateful for everyone.
Thank you guys. I mean, like I said, I mean, if we all, as an industry, if we all do better, right? Rising tide floats all boats. It's just only going to be better for all of us, right? And so everything, Alex and Dave have said, it's funny side note, Dale Vermillion, I will be tuning into that. My first job, the first day on the job, the first actually 3 days, I sat in a room with the old, remember the TV that had the VHS underneath it? And I watched 3 straight days of Dale Vermillion teach you mortgage. And then they said, get on the phones. So like that's my Dale Vermillion story. Like 3 days in a room by myself with a VHS watching Dale Vermillion speak. So that was.
I need one more word. So think about this, Regan, knowing what great training that was. It's 3.5 hours. So like literally a loan officer can knock this off in a week. And it's like 30, 3-minute to 12-minute sessions with a test at the end of it. As a manager, is that like the biggest no-brainer ever?
I mean, I'll be on, like I said, I'll be on it just because that was 19 years ago that I saw it. And like, I can literally watch him in a conference talking about a 228 with a 3-year prepay or a 1-year prepay, right? Like I can just see that. So like, I'm going to see how the evolution has changed in that 19, 20 years. So I will definitely be subscribing and tuning in on that.
Well, here's what we're going to do one better, because he was really influential in my career as well. It was about 25 years ago for me, but we'll introduce you to Dale and we'd love for you to have a personal chat with him. So
that would be awesome. That's hilarious. That would be great.
We'll do it.
Hey guys, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.